Okay, look who's here. Welcome, Hazmat community, to this episode of the Hazmat Roundtable 2.0, the only interactive show that lands on the X and in the hot zone where everybody has a seat at the table. I'm Bobby Salison, and along with Bob Cascignano, Mike Monaco, and Jay-Z, Jeff Zintak, the one and only. There he is sitting there in the, I don't even know what seat. What is that, a motorcycle helmet behind you? We'll get back to that in a second. Welcome to the Roundtable. It's brought to you by ResponderTraining.com, where you can reach out to ResponderTraining.com at 765-524-4848. That's ResponderTraining.com, and you'll find the link and all of our sponsors in the show notes below at the end. So welcome to the Roundtable once again, guys. How are you?
Great. Fabulous.
Hanging in there.
And you know, some people were asking me today, they said, what's a special announcement you got? Well, the special announcement, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have the great Jeff Zintek now part of the team for the Roundtable. Welcome aboard, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This will be fun. Look forward to it.
Yeah, dude, you got the flat-brimmed hat. You are ready to roll.
Yes. My hair's a mess today.
Is it? There's a lot of humidity, right? Like my hair back.
Yeah, I mean, I can't do a thing with it.
Yeah, I get that all the time. All the time.
You guys even have humidity in the desert? Like, aren't you usually at 2?
Late August, late August we get humidity because the storms roll in and out, but just briefly.
So, okay, all right. Just out of curiosity, what is an Arizona level of humidity for those on the East Coast? I want to be able to get a good chuckle. What's a humid day for you?
10%, 20.
What?
I'm sorry, I almost choked on my one.
Hey, it's rough.
We had 80%, I think, today.
Yeah.
50 to 80%, somewhere in there.
What we lose in humidity, we make up in heat, so it all evens out.
Now they say dry heat versus, it doesn't matter. Hot is hot.
Yeah, hot is hot. Yeah. Once it gets over 110, it really doesn't matter how hot it is. It's just hot. Really hot.
I don't know. It does change operations a little, though.
Well, we still gotta do what you gotta do.
You do, but there's definitely some stuff that is a little bit easier in our humidity, like the grounding and bonding, right? Like we don't necessarily do as much of that, although I guess we can't actually say that. That's like one of those things you tell the students after the class is over.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was teaching the other day, and we were talking about grounding and bonding. We were talking about how bad it is here, and it's like, do you really want to test it with an ohm meter? Because what if you're not where you want to be?
You know what? That brings kind of off topic of what we were going to discuss today. But since you brought that up, that's a good point. Can you enlighten us on how you would do that in your locale?
We just try the best we can. We wet the ground as much as possible. We'll put multiple rods in. But, honestly, and it's probably not the best thing to say, but you can't stop a whole operation just, if you can't achieve it. And it's like Mike says, you tell them that afterwards. This is optimal, but if you can't obtain optimal, what are you going to do? Just shut it down and go, oh, we can't do it?
Jay-Z, what do you guys, depending on what school you learn about driving it straight into the ground or laying the field flat, which is what I'm in your range here, because in Manhattan, where there might be 7 or 8 cubic yards of dirt in the entire island, it is extremely, if not impossible, to find a grounding field, if you would. So, like, if we're going to do it, we're going to literally drop them in the crack between the sidewalk and the curb, because there is nothing. If we were pressing, do you guys drive them straight or do you lay them flat? What is your, what do you do?
We drive them straight. Oh, we may find something that's driven into the ground, a fence post or, something like that we could ground off of as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get a little bit creative. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've been using, and me and Mike, we were part of the whole thing where we were playing with everything in the world, like
everything,
like hitting the grounding lug on a lamppost, hitting street signs, hitting guardrails, hitting hydrants. which are buried in the ground and have water. Like, so we would bring up the hydrant where the water was just coming out, and we put the wire inside. We threw chain inside the hydrant, and you know what it came out to? The same thing if we did
All the
nothing.
same. All the same. All the friggin'. We ended up taking the ohm meter off the rig because it was like, you know what? It doesn't, like, we're getting the same readings no matter what we do.
You know, I'm the same way. I hate to, that's really not the optimal thing to do. You hate to talk about that, but the thing is what are you going to do if you don't reach that? I mean, you can't just throw your arms up and go, we're done.
No,
you just
you got to strive for the best.
For the best. Yeah, we know what optimal is. We know what good is, but if we don't achieve that, you know, we have to be a little safer in the hot zone.
It makes me wonder, is there, and I've never looked into it, and I probably should, is there scientific studies backing our grounding and bonding techniques other than just somebody being like, well, this is how electricity flows, like the need, the desire, the like, is there anything that actually backs it? Or is this one of those things that was kind of like created back when there wasn't a lot of scientific information and it's just perpetuated through the generations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've done a little bit of research on it. I mean, I get most of my stuff off of like power companies, and they talk about grounding. But when you're talking about power companies, they're talking about stuff that probably not reasonable for us to do.
Yeah,
but a lot of the science makes sense.
Yeah, the science, absolutely, the science makes sense. But
for emergency situations, I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, like, do we really have to wait that? Like, do we really have to let it rest before we transfer? Like, is that really something that we have to do, or is that just kind of like a scientific theory that doesn't actually play into the real world?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny too, because when we go to natural gas leaks, for instance, I've never seen the gas companies show up and start doing grounding and bonding stuff at all.
No.
Here in Florida.
No, same here. They just jump in the hole and turn it off.
In their blue jeans and, you know, beard, mustache, whatever. Don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
NFPA 77 is the one that guides, and for a little bit historical, how long ago was it that they switched it over from 25 ohms, that unicorn that nobody could ever get, to 1 kilo ohm? I want to say it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't very long ago, and it's NFPA 77, as Dr. Baxter just pointed out on the YouTube, the 2014 edition. They switched over. Thank you, 2014. So it's been 6 years. They moved it over from that unicorn that can never be found,
Right.
like
For grounding houses for lightning strikes.
Yeah, that was the electrical thing, was for houses, lightning strikes to be brought down, and now we're at a more I will say acceptable 1K, which is very easy to hit, and that's all you really need. You need to relax the system to do your job.
Right.
You know, that all comes, again, this wasn't the intended topic for those of you that are out there. We actually had a whole, it just kind of came up and we're just riffing on it, but when we were talking, this kind of goes with like the whole flammable liquids. You know, why would you ground and bond? It's because we have a flammable, we don't want it to go on fire, we're trying to relax the possible ignition sources, and we just had this discussion today where the topic of foam came in, right? And one of the newer guys were talking about quarter drain time. Now, let me ask you guys, have you ever done a quarter drain time formula calculation and figured all that out?
No.
Well, I mean, in the TEACS class,
Yes.
you sit down and you do the quarter drain time calculations.
Right. In real life, have anybody ever done it?
No, you just keep spraying foam.
Right. So I said to him, I go, all right, guys, here's the dirty little secret. You take 4 guys and you put them at the corners with 4 gas meters, and when their meters start going up, you say throw more foam, and that's the end of it. They're like, is that it? I'm like, that's all you do.
That's it.
Nothing wrong with that.
See, there you go. We got more people. We got a harumphs from the crowd saying F no, no way. All right. So I just want to make sure the rubber hit the road right there, and that's what we were doing. So,
Well, what was the intended topic for the day?
Yes.
So the intended topic for the day, the four of us have been to different disaster type things in the country, the world, or whatever, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers have been as well. With the recent hurricane that just went through the Louisiana area, we were talking a little bit about what the first responder would do, whether it's operational level or technician level, when you come across these different things. As we were talking a little bit offline, in 2004, we had 4 hurricanes come through Central Florida. And as you know, Mike always says, where everybody comes to die. And, which might be true. And the thing that we came across more than anything was natural gas line leaks. We had a boatload of them. Well, we only have so many plugs in our kit. So what do? And we were literally MacGyvering it. For you kids that don't know who that is, look it up, good show. And basically what it was is you figure it out as you go. We were literally taking sticks and branches or whatever, shoving it in the end of these pipes and duct taping it to hold it until the gas company could come through in a week or 2, because it literally took that long for them to get all this, under control. And it's not so much of you're mitigating the leak completely as you're slowing the flow, or you're, whatever it is to make it safer. You're not going to make it completely safe in this type of situation. So the idea of the whole conversation was what happened where the path of this particular storm went through. It went through some heavy industrial area. And one of the big topics, I think it was day 1, if I'm not mistaken, fellas, chemical fire in Lake Charles. So I'm going to cue that up real quick. And some of you guys may have seen this, the plume of smoke and whatnot. There was reports of a chlorine cloud that was drifting to the east, and a lot of discussion as to what you would do. So what we're going to do, if you guys will indulge us for a few minutes, is just give me the picture, and then we'll play this 2 different ways if you guys think. First arriving unit, and then hazmat team comes up. So give me 1 hot second here. And we're going to pull this up. Now, you arrive on scene, and you got this going on. So just looking at the smoke, let's stop right there for a second. The color of the smoke, what's that telling everybody?
I'm saying a nitrite, some kind of a heavy-duty oxidizer.
Yeah. I mean, it's dark. It might, and again, dark from the fire matter thing. It's like, okay, dark smoke equals a lot of carbons in it, plasticky, which, yeah, these things are stored in plastics. So I would expect that. But the underlying, I would agree with Mike, is like an orangish blush, bronzewood sandalwood, like a Bronzeberry frost. Like
yeah, you would go with a Bronzeberry frost. I don't know if I would go as far as a Bronzeberry frost.
I don't know. I would go with the whole IKEA catalog in the full area.
I definitely would venture to say it's not normal smoke.
We're getting in, looks like a dye versus a nitrate, phenolphthalein. Oh,
ooh,
that is a good possibility, because it's more of a purple than an orange, which would be a nitrate. I will entertain that for this moment, considering I'm in our house.
Good tip, Doc. All right, so we'll fast forward a little bit more. I think everybody would agree. We're not doing anything right now, right? I mean,
no.
Now there is one.
What is that? What is that stream across the? Is that a hose stream that's going across the screen? It looks like a master stream, but it's way too far away.
No, that's the bottom of the helicopter. But right there.
Okay, I see.
There might be a little hose stream, something going on right there.
It's so interesting, the absolute difference in the color between the smoke coming out of the tower and the smoke coming out of the base.
Most definitely.
And you know what? Let me back up a little bit.
Todd Burton's saying bromine. and there seems to be a little bit of a consensus on that one. Bromine is a reddish, purplish type thing. There is a, but you know what the thing is, Mike, is that if you look at that tower, there was a class I took a long time ago by this guy named Dave Dodson, reading smoke. Did you ever hear of this guy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the one in the top window, you see that one in the front is pushing hard and fast, and the rest
Isn't
of it
that weird?
lazy.
The rest of it is wispy, and then you have the one under pressure that's clearly either broken a window already. So the
There's a
whole thing
lot
is
of
just
pressure in the top, but there's no
Yeah.
pressure in the bottom, and that's an odd firematic thing. For those of you that are firefighters, that is extremely weird. Like, if you have that much pressure, you usually have a couple more windows blown out because of the pressure, but because it's pushing out like red velvet, like it's coming out like velvet on the top floor, and yet on the, I'm gonna guess, third, fourth floor, wherever it is, it's kind of lazy and just hanging and being influenced by the wind. That's odd.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Rob Horgan from Canada just brought up 2 great points. If you know the company, Google it and find out what they're carrying. So that's a very good point. And secondly, he brought up a great tool called let's see if I have it here, the Hazmat Response Guidebook by Jeff Zintek. That would be a great tool to have. And
What?
he brought it up. He said,
Never heard of it.
He said, get out the Hazmat Response Field Ops Guide. That's
I don't think that incident is in there though.
That's volume 3, JC.
But I agree with Bobby. I think that tall, whatever story building that, I don't know, is that 6 maybe stories?
6 stories, I'm gonna guess, and maybe 2
I would say.
things per story.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way, like he says it. I wonder if it's a
broken up into sections.
Broken up into sections.
Carpental.
Because it's very industrial. So compartmentalized. But I wonder if it's broken up into sections and it's just, it's some sort of industrial like that. But
That's a good one.
It really bothers me because of that's a long burning, and you can't get to it. You can't get to the sea of the fire.
So they're in a helicopter. All right, now I'm tracking.
Yeah, that was a helicopter. So that's a lot, and you see which way the smoke is going. I looked at it in the map. That's actually traveling towards the east, which brings me to another point. So let's go to this. Here's your lab. Okay.
Okay.
That's where the fire was at. Okay, there's Lake Charles to the right. So what are you thinking that you need to do probably pretty quick? Because you got a lot of industry around here. What's this? Westlake Chemical South. Who the hell knows what they have in that place? They've got a lot of things around here if this fire spreads and gets loose.
Wow, there's a lot of tanks to the north of
All right here, yep.
Golden tanks.
Route
All
10.
fuel tanks, Chevron.
Oh my God.
So
Is
we
housing
Still, I mean,
low?
still pretty far away. I mean, when you consider the scale and the size of everything, I don't really see an exposure issue as far as, radiant heat lighting these tanks on fire, especially since we didn't even actually see
I think it's
fire.
like a plume problem.
A plume problem, right.
Okay, good point. So let's go to this. Now we pan out a little bit. Now we've got this whole neighborhood area
Yeah, that's right.
just on the other side of the lake.
You got the sloppy taco. I love that place.
Dude, that's the greatest tacos in the world. They are sloppy, but they're awesome, so I hear.
Incredible.
I don't think that's I think that's a massage parlor, isn't it?
Well, it depends on which side of this building you're going.
Well, luckily, maybe evacuation or a plume wouldn't be a problem because they've already evacuated, hopefully, because of the hurricane that was coming in. Correct? No.
Oh, that's a valid point.
That's a really good point.
Right.
But my concern would be just the inundation of the emergency response crews. You're going to have some guys there that are going to sit there by themselves for a while, just maybe 1 or 2 engines, and nobody else is coming because they're out doing a bunch of other stuff.
Well, I would bet that an area like this that's so heavily industrial with chemical fires and areas where if it did go on fire, they wouldn't want to keep people hanging out there to put out the fire. They would have some type of automated deck gun, auto appliance like a blitz fire or whatever appliance that you want, where you can set it up and it would auto oscillate and kind of keep that tank without people sitting there and exposing themselves. You would have to assume it. I would hope they have it. If they don't have it, our call is to get those things, and they make them in small ranges where it's almost like one person driven versus you pull the rig up, hook it up to the hydrant, and it just blasts out 5 or 6 inches worth of water, which is a significant amount of water.
Talking to some people kind of in the general area, that they said that there was minimal staff in a lot of these different plants, because this part of the country, I mean, there's a gazillion of these things, and they had minimal staff on site in case something was to happen. Todd Burton brought up a good point, is doesn't all states have disclosure requirements? California has 55 gallons for 500 pounds. And there is a lot of requirements. There's a thing called E-Plan that's out there. Some states use what's called the Tier 2 system, but E-Plan is that if you have it in your state, look it up. You can get it usually through your LAPC or your local fire department, and you have to get approval, but it actually lists every chemical for that particular plant, your emergency information. You can even type in the location, and it'll show you how many schools are close by and so on. So it'll give you a lot of good framework to start building those building blocks to get your scene hopefully rolling in the right position.
There was a good point brought up by Dr. Baxter, as long as the firefighters have access to the system, and that's an absolute truth, because the Tier 2 reporting is supposed to be delivered to the authority having jurisdiction for that area. However, how many authority having jurisdiction chiefs of the department go, yeah, that's great, I don't even know what this means. So they just throw it in a garbage can, because I kind of knew about it, but the E-Plan is a Tier 2 system and is great as long as EMA gives you access to the data. And that's absolutely true, is that you might not even have access to it. I know California has a login to check out what's going on in each one. I don't even think half the people that have access to it know they have access to it, let alone can manipulate the data to gain some tactical advantage on a pre-planned sense.
Well, just look, Bob, we did a podcast on the Tier 2 in our jurisdiction. What did you have to go through to get the Tier 2 information?
I got the 2017 New York City Tier 2 in 2019. It took me 2 years to wade through from the inside to get
from the inside.
Tier 2 report.
So you would think that in the position that we are, we would have easy access to this stuff, and we know the guy. Literally, we're firefighters with the guy who was running the Tier 2 system.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's strange, because here in Florida with the E-Plan system, as long as you are granted access from whomever your department is the person, then you're allowed to see that. And what we did is we had basically the hazmat officers and a couple other people, obviously in case somebody was off, to get into that system, because obviously they don't want everybody and their brother to be able to see this stuff, for obvious reasons. But it is a great system. Anytime you have extra information, you got to be able to use it.
I agree.
So, getting to the whole concept that this is happening during a hurricane, and a lot of the basic infrastructure is down, right? So how is there even an emergency alert system available for these areas? There's no TV, there's no power, there's no cell phone coverage.
No reverse 911.
No reverse 911. How is an area going to let people know that they have to evacuate certain areas? What is even that process look like?
That's going back to your emergency management people, I guess, getting the information to them and them getting it out whether it's by radio or, because a lot of people, I think, hopefully anyway, by this day and age, have storm radios that are battery operated, so they can at least get some kind of, info, because cell phones, because we know they work so great, right? But if you don't have a storm radio, you're listening to this, hopefully everybody that's listening to this, being first responders, has a storm radio. Get one, because this is where you will get that kind of information from.
Let's say you're going into this. We'll cut out the fire max, because not everybody's a firefighter in here, and let's play this as you're the hazmat unit. You're the hazmat unit. Does anybody say we're not coming in with a 4 gas? Right? I mean, we were all coming with 4 gas.
Why?
PID. I would say we're all coming with PID.
Why? Just out of curiosity, like what?
I want to know everything. Like my point is that I'm going to have no problem saying yes to everything up to, I'm not going to say including, but like mass spec and GCMS and stuff. I'm going to say yes to 4 gas, PID, colorimetric. I'm not going to rule anything out until I've ruled something out. Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No.
Probably the first thing I would do is I would deploy our area array system where this plume is going towards, and at least get it somewhat geographically located that way, and then have my team do that. So I'm kind of doing 2 things at once.
I don't disagree with it.
Yeah. And if I didn't have the manpower, I think I would focus on that even first. Kind of work my way back to the scene.
Yes. Somebody's saying chameleon kit, which I've never heard of, but the AP4C, which is a flame spectroscopy device, is for this one an absolute godsend. More on that later. There's a little bit more to do with that thing. Find a facility manager. That's a good one as well. But NDAR, what else is out there? Electrochemical, cat bead. I would be throwing every technology I had at this thing to start getting some information back, because right now the color of smoke is not indicative. It gives me a lot of conjecture, but it doesn't tell me anything.
I think my hazmat team would be heavy on research on this, because we got to figure out what's obviously what's burning. Because what we're going to use, we're going to use water.
Jeff, let me ask you this then, because we had something similar. We had a drill the other day, and somebody was giving us something like this. It was a drum. It was leaking, and there were people that were nauseous. And so, what would you utilize? I'm curious, what would you guys utilize to find out, okay, I have a drum, it's leaking, and I have people nauseous. What's your go-to tool?
Well, for us, it's an unknown, so it's everything. Our family of meters. That's what, it's like you mentioned, everything we have. I think one of the problems I see run into is some departments don't have everything, so they're maybe not run some sort of chemical warfare meter. They're running, only maybe a rad meter, a 5 gas, and then they've got their colorimetric tubes, but they're not really sure, what they're gonna throw out there. But for us, it's everything we have, every meter we have, and see what hits.
And I don't disagree with that at all. And I think at the same time, our research people would be looking up everything possible, again, because we're dealing with a hurricane, what kind of access we have, which may be limited. This goes back to, guys and gals, the books. Okay, don't forget, we got these cool apps and everything, but when the cell system's down and we can't get to certain things, we got the books. But if I did have a cell system, I'd look at Wiser, I'd look at Chemical Companion, I'd look at all these other things that I can plug in the different things that will guide me or shrink the possibility from 1,000 different types of items down to maybe 10, 20, 30.
And the quantity. I want to know how much is there, because they may have an idea of what they have in stock, how much is there, maybe they don't have as much as normal, something like that. And if it gets into this one building that's running parallel to us, I mean, what do we have in there?
Well,
So
that's what we did. We used Chem, the CHEMM from Weiser, but we ended up going with the chemical companion. The tool was, and Christina Baxter will help me out with this, the tool was like the unknown chemical, and you just basically put in, oh, it's a liquid, because it's come from a drum. You don't have gases, so I can say, well, it's a liquid or it's a solid. Okay, great. And then I can say, well, it's clear because I'm looking at water coming out of a drum, because nobody's putting any extra effort into these drills, because we're all phoning it in at this point in our career. You know, but you have people are nauseous, and so you add all these things in, unknown chemical gas color. Thank you. You add all these things in, you start getting some stuff back, and Chem has both the chemical physical properties where I'm observing this, I see a red, I see you know, a dark thing, but I can also use the symptomology of people in the Chem. There's a second tool there. It's called the Chem something. Somebody will throw it up there on the group somewhere. But there's a second one for symptomology, where if those two things are meshing, you are in the right zone. And I can say, well, it's a halide, or it's an alcohol, or whatever the hell it is. That's a big plus for me as a resource, or the research guy, or the tech ref, to find out what my problem is, and then start figuring out my tactical decisions based upon that. You know, so I don't know.
And the other thing too is we haven't even talked about yet. Are we concerned with environmental?
No.
At this point, no.
Not at all.
Not even in my mind.
Wouldn't even blink an eye. I would think environmental in the point of view of like, okay, maybe a non-intervention specialist team is required. You know, like maybe these are just a bunch of plastic drums, and when they're done burning off, the whole thing's just gonna, you know, put itself out. And if I add tons of water to it, I'm only gonna make the long-term situation worse. But a drone might be a great tool to try to use to get in close and give you some recon. Close, otherwise close.
No, I'm looking to see if it's close enough for the Coast Guard to be involved in this.
Well,
there's the Gulf right there.
If it's a navigable waterway, then they are to be called for any spill of any size.
Is it navigable, or is it navigable tidal? Not tidal.
No, I think it's navigable. If you can put a boat on the water, you have to call the Coast Guard. Wait.
No, because if you go into, there's tidal waters that you can't put a boat on, and
you might be right on that one. I think you might be. Yeah, that's probably right. Tidal waters that are.
Because if you look at where this is, this waterway goes all the way down right into the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I'm getting. I call them anyway.
I call.
And you know what? That's when I was. Come if you want to play. Take a look. You know, tell me what you want. You don't want to play.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's an interesting little tidbit there.
I don't
Do you know the end of the story on that one, Bob?
Do I?
Yeah. Do you know what they finally ended up doing? How long did it last?
It's still going on.
It is.
The fire's out. From what I understand, they've used, I think it was 70,000 feet of large diameter hose.
Wow.
And some attack lines initially that they just got piled up on the side somewhere, and people, because they know it's contaminated and what have you, I think they're going to write it off. So from my understanding, the fire's out, and now they're getting into the cleanup phase. There might be a couple smoldering things here and there, but I did hear that there was not any chlorine registering close to the site, but when it started drifting apart, and I don't know if that's because of the fire, if that's because of the other things that were involved in it, they were getting some chlorine hits to the east, you know, where the plume was going. Low levels.
I mean, that can be a cross sensitivity because it's in the same family.
Right. So
interesting.
But the point, you know, the point of this whole discussion was, you know, you have this type of incident. We know when we're kind of fortunate. We know when hurricane season is. We know where things are going to happen. And if you're in any of these locales that have any of this stuff, it doesn't really have to be this. It can be your big box stores, your Home Depots, your Lowe's, or whatever, and you have something come through there. These things can mix. And that's where the pre-fire plan comes into play, where you need to come make sure that, you know, everybody's, oh, we got to go look at this building. Well, you're looking at building construction if it's on fire, number one. And number two, what if this stuff combines, or we have a chemical release during a hurricane, during some type of weather event? What are we going to do, and how are we going to handle it? And pre-plan, as we always say, is everything. I want to pre-plan it at 3 p.m., not 3 a.m.
Well, I definitely think those coastal states have increased their emergency response preparation just because of the hurricane, the past hurricanes we've had.
Yeah.
And now with the FEMA teams, they're pre-deploying them, you know, 6, 7, 10 teams at a time. So you're getting help earlier. So I think that's always a good thing.
And let me end the sharing thing here. And real quickly, Bobby, when you were down in, was it Texas?
Yeah.
A year or two ago? What were the main hazmat problems you came across when you were in that region for that hurricane?
Getting water. Getting water was impossible. Yeah, dude, decon water was impossible. We were shuttling it in by makeshift, taking totes and filling with tarps, filling with water, and giving a generator, a hose, and a submersible pump to do decon in the field. So you have to get pretty inventive to do.
So your biggest problem was decon?
Decon was impossible. The fire ants, which we're not used to, but we came up with a couple of different ideas on how to kill them, because these guys are going inside wetsuits in these things, and you see this floating brown basketball, and you're like, oh, what the hell is that? And you go touch it, and then your entire suit's full of fire ants, because they fill up to big bowls of fire ants, and if they touch your boat, they take the boat over. Like, the only way to get rid of the fire ants is to burn it. So decon was very tough, and in these southern states where they know what I'm talking about when I say the fire ant problem, the snake problem, the spider problem is an enormous problem, and water is probably your biggest hazmat hazard. You can't, without water, you have really limited access.
Yeah, when you think about the water that you're wading through, is the soup of every person's storage shed, every filling station that has stuff there, stores that are stuff's leaking into, and it's just this big giant soup of stuff that you're just wading in. And then as the hazmat team, that was our big deal, is we have to decon the people coming back. And sometimes, we're thinking about, is this suit even deconable? Because of that was a big deal for the hazmat group, was we needed a suit that's deconable because they're getting into such bad stuff. And and that's really our biggest thing as a hazmat guy for the decon. So yeah,
it was interesting. So good episode. You guys rock. So once again, we'll check you out on the first Tuesday of next month, and see what's shaking between now and then. Until then, check out our sponsors, Emergency Response, all the other. There's too many. Just check it out in the show notes. I'll have it all spun up and it'll look awesome. But thank you, Jay-Z.
Before we go, I got to say one thing. I got to make sure people see this. The Hazmat Guide Response Book.
What is that?
It's this cool thing by our new co-host. My green screen's kind of screwing it up, by Jeff Z. Jeff, where can we get this at, Jeff?
Well, the website, Hazmat Response Guide, www.hazmatresponseguide.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's usually that's the best way. I used to have it on Amazon, but I don't know, it's too much work to get it on there. That's the best way.
A lot of great information in that book.
Well,
Nice.
there you go.
You know what? I got a book here. Hold on. So let me get
I was
it.
gonna say, Bobby, you got something, don't you?
Got to run out of Christina Baxter's bookshelf. Look at this thing. Oh.
Oh,
There you
Oh.
go.
Isn't that crazy? It's right on this.
what's it called and where can they get it?
It's called the Nerd. NERHD Hazmat Drills. It's for everybody. It gets you drills to get your company spun up, and it's a great personal book. Excellent, top notch. And there's more coming.
Awesome.
That was such a hacky move.
That really was.
We got one more. The Chemical Card Guidebook.
I have one. They're awesome. Actually, it's very good. I like it.
All the information's broke down for you.
I love it.
You can go to hazmat101consultants.com, the shop area, and pick one up.
Mike, got anything?
I can probably find the Gideon's Bible somewhere in this hotel room. But it's not in the drawer in the desk I'm sitting at right now, so.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Enjoy your night. More to come. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Salute.